Carved columns like those Julie and Salah have uncovered at Dan Gale no longer exist, worn away by centuries of exposure.
Weather conditions are very harsh, so now the temple and the whole site is really in ruins.
But when the temple shone like a jewel at the base of the sacred mountain, the mighty Egyptian pharaohs would have traveled hundreds of miles to be crowned here by the high priests of Amun.
This was the holiest place in the Nile Valley. They were thinking from long away that Amun was dwelling here.
Inside the base of the pinnacle lies a temple to the goddess Mut, wife of the god Amun. Salah can read the mythology of the mountain carved on the temple walls.
You can see clearly the silhouette of the mountain, a high outcrop with a flat top like that, and in front you can see the snake and the sun disk, which is a symbol of kingship. And inside the mountain we can see Amun seated on his throne. This was the ancient belief that Amun was dwelling inside the mountain of Jabal Barkal.
In the 8th century BC, the once powerful Egypt had grown weak and lost its hold on the sacred mountain. The Nubians assumed control of Jabal Barkal, calling themselves the true sons of Amun, and eventually became so powerful they marched on Egypt. They conquered their northern rival and founded the 25th dynasty.
Everybody thinks that the Egyptians were the masters of the Nile Valley, but it was not the case all the time. For a period of more than 100 years, the Nubians were the masters of Africa.
King Taharko was the most prominent in this powerful lineage of Nubian pharaohs who came to rule over the land of the pyramids. Their kingdom now incorporated all the wealth and splendor that had defined the Egyptian civilization. For almost a century, the Nubians controlled a territory that today would stretch from Khartoum all the way to Palestine.
Maybe at that time it was the largest country of the whole world. It was an empire, a real empire.
Though the Nubians ultimately lost control of Egypt to an invasion of Assyrians, this didn't put an end to their kingdom or their loyalty to the great god Amun. They regrouped in the south and would flourish for another 1,000 years, building temples to the god of gods all over their realm. It is Salah's mission to restore the legacy of his ancestors.
Now it is part of my life to go out of home to excavate. I have to dig something. I have to discover something for the history of Sudan.
Julie and the excavation team continue the battle against heat and sandstorms, hoping to unlock more of the mystery of the Amun temple. The removal of another 3 feet of fill reveals more of the sandstone columns and a now familiar figure, the Nile god the ancient Nubians called Hapi. The water bearer is making multiple appearances in the inner courtyard.
On this column we have 8 figures of Hapi, and on all of the other columns we have 8 figures. So by the time we're done, we're going to have drawn 32 Hapi figures. Hapi is the god of the Nile, and he's carrying jars that are pouring water. He brings the fertility of the Nile to the people who live along its banks. That's why Hapi's so important to the people who lived here. Without the Nile and the river and the water, they'd die.
Water was so important to the ancient Nubians that it played a central role in the daily life of this temple.
The priests would have offered libations to the gods. Particularly here it would have been the god Amun. So this would involve pouring water or possibly milk on the altar and giving it to the god.
The priests of Amun would have carried out this ritual in the most sacred part of the temple, the innermost sanctuary.
Normally, only the priests would have entered this room. It's the main sanctuary, the Holy of Holies.
Julie and Salah have been waiting to excavate this sacred chamber. They expect to find an altar or statue here, something to correlate with the ancient rituals they know took place deep inside the temple.
These are huge blocks. You can see they're larger than my hand in thickness. They held something really, really heavy here. It could be an altar, it could be a statue.
This is where the priests would have made their offerings to Amun. But where the altar should stand, there is now disturbing evidence of desecration.
Well, it looks like somebody dug a huge hole in the floor of the main sanctuary of the temple.
The sacred shrine is missing.
Either they took it with them or they pushed it over and took it somewhere else and maybe smashed it. So in terms of committing sacrilege, this is a terrible, terrible offense.
With evidence of foul play mounting, the fire discovered earlier in the forecourt is beginning to look like no accident. The identity of the marauders is a mystery, but what they did with the altar soon becomes perfectly clear when Julie re-examines a heap of stone fragments excavated earlier in the season.
This is the top corner of an altar. It's also quite heavy, so it took a lot of muscle to break this piece into the numerous pieces that you see here.
Luckily, though the altar was destroyed, a crucial piece remains intact.
We turned up this piece.
It's the missing part of the cartouche Julie and Salah have been searching for. Now they can decipher the name of the ruler who built this temple, and is not a king.
The royal name is Marie Ka Ra, and that's one of the names of Queen Amanitori.
The temple is no longer anonymous. Now it has a ruler and an age. Amanitori is another powerful Nubian queen who ruled during the 1st century AD. Queen Amanitori and her co-regent King Natakamani reigned over Nubia during the time of Christ. Together, this powerful couple honored the gods by building more temples than almost any other Nubian rulers. The complex at the site of Naga, 125 miles to the south, is an impressive testament to their devotion. An avenue of ram statues leading up to the temple pays homage to Amun and hints at what the sands of Dangail may still be hiding. Like all Nubian rulers, King Natakamani and Queen Amanitori would have been officially crowned first at Jebel Barkal. From there, they would have